we're live! Welcome to yet another edition of PCS Impact Q&A. I'm your host, MJ Boyce. I am the Director of Community Outreach at PCS Grades. Boom! With me, as always, is the lovely Megan Harless, our resident PCS reform advocate, and oh, by the way, resident BA, censored for little ears, in your room because we love you. We've got a great show today because we're going to get down to the nitty gritty of those taxes, especially, really, as if PCSing wasn't already taxing. Wah, wah, wah. But before we get to Megan's DOD updates and our special guest for today, we're going to go ahead and hit up those housekeeping items as we do every week. Ready, set, here we go. All right, we've got the answers, people. And if we don't have the answers, we know who does. And if we don't know either of those things, we're going to take your questions for action and get back to you with an answer. Speaking of questions, go ahead and leave them down in the comment section below. Questions, comments, concerns, all of those are entries to win. The more you engage, the more chances you have to be put in the wheel of names. We are giving away today, the places you will go in honor of Read Across America. The places you will go fits with the military lifestyle, whether it's for your kid or you want to give it to somebody for a hail and farewell. That would be awesome, whatever you choose. So that's one of our giveaways today. And we're also giving away, as always, the lovely Hope Design Limited Bling. Blingy bling. So yes, those questions, comments, and concerns, go ahead and drop them in the comments section and we'll go ahead and answer throughout or towards the end. And everyone is an entry to win. LOL smiley faces are awesome, but they're not going to get you an entry. All right, moving on. We bring experts to you. Experts like this tax professional here, who also, by the way, military spouse. Hi, how you doing? That's how we roll here, because, two birds, one stone. But we also have U.S. Transportation Command. We've had military movers. We've had other industry professionals. We bring these experts to you so that you can go to the source. Sometimes you're going to have specific questions and specific issues that are specific to you and your military family. In those cases, your two forever and always resources will be, number one, your chain of command. Number two, your local transportation office. Those are the people who know you. Those are the people who are dealing with your stuff. Those are the people who can take your issues and further them for action. Last, but certainly not least, we've got to continue to do our part, people. We have got to continue to try and flatten that curve. We've got to flatten that curve. Wear your mask, social distance, whatever it takes. Get those immunizations. And if you live in a state that no longer has a mask mandate, think twice before you walk out the door per the CDC guidelines. Yes, I'm going to push this. Why? Because it affects our PCSs. It affects our service members coming home from deployment. It affects our confidence when we move. So just to be safe, keep doing your part to help flatten that curve, because when we flatten that curve, we're going to flatten Murphy with it. You hear us, Murphy? We are coming for you. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Megan for those DOD updates. Megan?
Hey everybody, so just one major thing for you today is that DPS is having some issues with logging in or even just getting the page to load. We've seen this happening over the weekend and it's still continuing to happen. A lot of folks are having issues trying to log into DPS, whether to set up their move or to do their claim. Transcom is aware of it. They're working through the issues right now to get that fixed. I've heard that if you have a government computer or access to a government computer, that folks are still able to log on that way, but using your own home computer at home currently is not working. Just a reminder that when DPS does come back up, the best way to utilize it on your computer is using Internet Explorer. If you have a Mac, it may be a little touchy. There might be some additional certifications that you need to download in order for it to work properly. But if you're trying to log into DPS and you're having issues, it's not just you. A lot of folks are. So as soon as it comes back up, we know issues are fixed, we will surely be sure to post and let you all know about that. But just take a breath, relax, go do something else, and we'll figure out what's going on with DPS. So that's all I've got for now. Send it back to you, MJ.
Word. Thanks for those policy updates, woman. And of course, as always, Megan brings the policy background. She is the guru, and she breaks it down for us and the peeps like me so we don't have to. So thank you, Megan. All right. We're going to get down to business here in a second, but I want to first introduce a friend of ours. Her name is Chrissy Laycock, and she is a tax professional. She's going to talk to us today a little bit about PCSing and taxes because, we've heard a lot of scuttlebutt in the groups lately. People are getting like random W-2s in the mail for their last PCS, and they're like, I didn't know this was taxable income. What is happening? And so we're here to kind of help break that down a little bit and also to figure out what kinds of things that you can write off perhaps as far as PCS expenses go. But before we dive into that, Chrissy, would you mind telling our audience just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Chrissy Laycock. I am an Army brat, a Air Force spouse, and now a proud Army mom. And I live in Virginia here with my daughter and my husband, and am a full-time accountant. So very, very exciting here. Word.
Well, welcome. I'm sure you'll be able to keep up with our shenanigans because there's a lot of them up in here. And just so our audience knows, go ahead. Today is a really, really important topic. So if you know somebody who's either recently PCS or is getting ready to PCS, you might want to hit them up, tag them in the comments, or, share this link on their page, whatever it is. And I say that because if you don't know someone, or if you know somebody, or your friends know somebody, like the more this information gets pushed out, the better prepared and the more focused that someone can be so they don't get caught on the back end owing the IRS the chunks of change. All right, so we're going to dive into these questions. Are you ready, guys?
Yes.
All right, here we go. All right. So PCS and taxes in general can be complicated sometimes, and of course it depends on specific situations and everything, but just off the top of your head, can PCS expenses actually be claimed on taxes?
Short answer, yes. Long answer, it's kind of complicated and very specific to your locations, but there are expenses that can be claimed. You just have to know what is allowed and what isn't.
So how would one determine, just really quick, what is and what is not?
Well, it depends on the type of move you're doing. If you're doing what used to be called a ditty, now what do they call it now?
The PPM.
The PPMs. Mm-hmm. If you're doing a PPM, most of your expenses are fully reimbursed. However, those are still taxable. You can claim anything that is non-reimbursed in excess on your taxes as a deduction. So if the military is moving you, they reimburse you for it, you can't claim that. If you do a partial ditty and a partial military move, the ditty amount that is not reimbursed can be claimed. If you're doing it all on your own and none of it's being reimbursed, you just have to find the fine line. Whatever the military reimburses you for, you cannot claim it as excess on your own taxes.
Okay. All right.
So as a family goes through their PCS, what receipts or documentation or other files should they be keeping that they would need come tax season?
Again, it depends on the type of move. If you're doing it yourself, obviously all receipts, keep those weight tickets, gas. Now, when you do a ditty move, you can either go by the mile, it's a percentage of mile reimbursements, or you can go by actual costs. If you go by actual costs, keep tickets for everything. Gas, anything that you need to do to your vehicles to prep for your move, oil changes, if you have to replace your windshield wipers, everybody in your household, if you need to do prep work for them to PCS, if you're going somewhere that needs immunizations for you and your pets, you can claim those. Obviously, the military doesn't reimburse you for the pet costs, but you can still claim that as travel expenses on your taxes. So it's important to be aware what the military covers might not be the same as what you can claim on your taxes. When it comes to the DoD, obviously they reimburse you for your DEERS dependents. For the IRS, anybody in your household is claimable. So if you live off base because you have relatives living with you that you claim as dependents but are not DEERS dependents, those can be added to your taxes.
Okay, I'm sorry, everybody. I just totally need to pause here for a second because you said something that really caught my eye. You said that you can claim people in your household, as in even if they're not like our teeny tiny kids.
If you claim them on your taxes as dependents and they are moving with you, you can claim their cost of travel expenses as well.
Okay, well, let's say I'm not moving this year, but I may want to claim the people in my house. Is that something that's allowable too?
You mean just
At least,
in general?
at least, just in general. Just in general.
In general, anybody that lives with you that you support for greater than half of the year, whether they're a student or a grown-up or an infant, you can claim them as a dependent.
Oh, it is so on. I'm sorry. You just gave me some research that I need to do. Sorry, man. I got a little G baby up in the house. Maybe Joe has a G baby in the house. So if I can
as long as you can show that the lion's share of their expenses are provided by you, which, if they're living with you is already the lion's share. If you're feeding them, if you're clothing them, those are costs. And if they're not making money, obviously a grandchild would not. That means you're supporting them and they are your dependent.
Noted.
That also has to make sure that nobody else is claiming them. If their parents are not claiming them, then only one person can claim one person. So.
Gotcha. Makes sense. All right. I'm sorry I got us off track. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's just what we do. We get off track sometimes down other rabbit holes that all pertain to what we're trying to discuss. So it's not uncommon for us here too. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. But we sometimes find, interesting information outside of those rabbit holes. So we talked about the, what receipts, what documentation, what other files, people should be keeping, but, what expenses can be claimed on taxes? Can you give me an example of if I'm doing a regular military move?
Or the military moves you yourself?
Yeah.
And, you can only claim what they do not reimburse you for. So if you're doing a partial ditty and have expenses that are not reimbursed, then you can claim those.
So to try to break this down a little bit. So say, for our TLE that we get, it's 10 days combined on either end of our PCS that we can be reimbursed for. So if we need 11 days or 12 days, that 1 or 2 day that's above our TLE entitlement, we can claim those days.
Up to 30 consecutive days from the days you leave your where you're PCSing from to, you can claim up to 30 consecutive days. So if the Air Force reimburses you for 10, you can therefore claim the expenses for the additional 20.
Awesome. That's good information.
Oh. Especially, if you have to wait for base housing or you're going to be in temporary lodging for a longer period of time for one reason or another. That's pretty cool.
Early because your house is being sold or you're trying to get your stuff out to get it clean so other folks can move in. That's some, you got
additional things. When you insure your household goods in transit, the military doesn't reimburse you for that, but you are also allowed to insure your goods for the same time frame, up to 30 consecutive days between the day you leave your PCS station to when you arrive at the new one. So if you have to put them in storage or if you insure them in transit in case something is lost, those funds, those particular 30 days. So if you have a general policy that covers it, you will have to prorate those costs. But for those 30 days, they will reimburse you that cost.
Can I just say right now that is brand new information? I like to, think I know the ins and outs of most things and whatnot, but finding that out about, the insurance of our household goods during transit and being able to use that on our taxes, something I had absolutely no idea about. And that I think would be a phenomenal thing. I think a lot of folks, when it comes time to moving, I'm no longer renting a house, we're moving, I cancel renter's insurance or we get rid of our homeowners because we're moving.
Oh, don't cancel until you're at your new place because most policies cover goods in transit.
Yes. And some people don't realize that, so they cancel things. I think, number one, not only are we trying to remind you all, as Chrissy just said, don't cancel your insurance. As I tell you almost once a month, don't cancel your insurance. But now to find out that when you are PCSing, you can use 30 days of what you're paying your insurance on your taxes to help you out there. So another reason to not cancel your insurance.
Same thing for storage costs. If you have to keep your goods in storage because you don't have a house yet and they have to deliver it to a storage place, obviously once the military delivers your something, your household goods to your storage place, not holding it in theirs. Obviously, if it's a storage place that's paid for by the military, that's different. But if you have them deliver it to your storage facility, those same 30 days apply.
That is so awesome.
So don't be rushed into thinking you have to accept the very first thing, because once the military delivers your household goods, that's it. It's all on you now, but you have those 30 days. Yeah. Obviously, you have to pay for them out of your pocket, but then you can, get reimbursed, or you can claim them on your taxes, rather.
So you just did something that I don't think anybody's been able to do in the year that we've been doing this webinar, which is you stumped Megan. People don't walk up in here and tell us something. I learn something every day. Every webinar, I learn something, and I'm doing the webinar, right? I'm helping host, so I'm for real. And so the fact that, boom, mic drop is all I'm gonna say.
I mean, it's really different. It's very important to understand that the military is not the IRS. Like, we have different rules, and sometimes they overlap and sometimes they do not. Just like the military has very specific rules on what is and is not a dependent, the IRS has their own rules.
Mm-hmm. I want to just say really quick, this is, right here, a perfect example, all these things that we didn't know that we just found out from Chrissy is a perfect example of why it's always a good idea to go and have your own tax professional review your stuff and look at, your PCS stuff and see what you can and cannot claim to help you out. Because if I were doing my own taxes like that right there, I wouldn't have known, I wouldn't have thought of it, not realizing that those were expenses that we would be able to claim. And so I think it's just, it might be a little costly, but I think in the long run, it is definitely money well spent to get, your own certified tax professional to look at your stuff and to make sure you're done in getting everything that you can possibly get out of it.
I mean, seriously. And really quick, I've seen some people have joined us. If you're watching or catching the replay, leave those questions below or share this with somebody you know. Again, you could be in the running for the wheel of names. Oh, the places you will go is something we're giving away today, as well as our Hope Design blingy bling. All right, Megan, back to you.
Oh, back to me. Oh, yeah. So when we were having such a good time, I got to drink my coffee and you threw me off here. It feels like a Monday, y'all. It's like the most Mondayest Wednesday in the history of whatever. So when we PCS, there are some things that our spouses will receive a W-2 for moving expenses. So what of those entitlements, of those reimbursements, are we receiving a W-2 for that we need to be on the lookout?
So in general, if the military moves you, those costs will show as taxable income on your regular W-2. Mm-hmm. However, if you do a DITY or a partial DITY or have expenses beyond that initial military move cost, you'll get what is called a W-2T or a travel W-2. Mm-hmm. Now, it's important to realize that this comes later than your normal W-2. So don't make a mistake. We've actually done this in the past where we've done a move, got our W-2, filed our taxes, a couple weeks later, get this additional W-2 in the mail and be like, what? So in that case, you have to file an amendment tax return, which can or cannot hurt you in the long run. It just depends.
Okay, but here's the thing. So, well, first of all, let's just say this here. If you moved last year and you haven't received that yet, I would say contact your transportation office and please don't file your taxes if you haven't already. But again, that's why we bring the experts here to you. But aside from you and this webinar right now, who is it that's supposed to be telling these people to expect it? Because you don't know what you don't know. I would have filed my taxes had I not known that was coming. So do they? I know it comes later, but do they have the same deadline, like that January 31st deadline?
Yeah, the W-2T does have that must be postmarked by January 31st. Now, there have been some delays in the mail, so I would give at least a week or two post the deadline. And if you have not received it then start calling your finance office to see, hey, I've received my regular W-2. Where's my W-2T? And make sure you check your finance website too, because it might be up there and it just might not be coming in the mail yet.
Okay, so that leads me to the next question for you, Megan. So families would contact their finance office, not necessarily the TSP?
No. So when your stuff is getting paid. I mean, part of it is from when you file your travel voucher. Your travel vouchers are filed with your finance office. So if you haven't received your payments yet, you need to go to your finance office and follow up. Also, the defense finance, I don't even know it. It's DFAS. We all call it DFAS. I don't know what the acronym is.
Oh, yeah. DFAS. Where the LESs are.
Yes, where all that is, you can contact them as well because they are the ones that issue your LESs, your W-2s, and all that good fun stuff. So you can go to your finance office first and ask them, and then if they aren't helping you, you can't get a hold of them, or they're not sure, you can go to DFAS and contact them as well, and they can help assist in making sure you get your W-2s as well. But I've got another question for you, Chrissy, while we're on this topic, is that say I move in December 2020, but I don't get my reimbursements paid to me until January 2021. What year am I filing that PCS on for my taxes if I have additional expenses I can claim? Can I claim it on my 2020, or do I need to claim it on the 2021 because that's when we were paid for it?
That's a very good question. And again, it's very situation specific. If you're just a general person, you are regular W-2 employee, and you normally file your taxes as a cash basis, then you would file it in the year that you received it. So if you moved in 2020, received it in 2021, you wouldn't file that on your taxes until you do your 2021 taxes. Okay. However, if one or somebody in your household is self-employed and you normally file your taxes on an accrual basis, meaning when the debt is incurred, say if you sell chairs and you sold chairs on credit, you would claim that money in the year that it was accrued, even if it wasn't, paid to you in that year. Then you would follow the precedent that your previous tax returns are set. And because you moved in that year, even if you didn't receive the cash until later, you would file as if you did. So it really depends on how you file your personal taxes. For the average person that's not self-employed, it's as a cash basis. So until you physically receive the cash, you don't file it on your returns.
Okay, that is so helpful. That answers a lot of questions that we've received in the spouses groups about, people say I've moved late 2020 and I haven't received it yet. Can I claim my expenses or not? So that was, thank you, a great answer that will go to help a lot of folks with that.
It really affects people that PCS late in the year, especially if you do a partial ditty. If the military reimburses you for their portion in 2020, and you don't receive the ditty portion until 2021, that kind of opens a whole nother can of worms. So you just have to be really mindful of when, like the specific date, when you receive the cash or funds, and what you normally file your returns as. If it's accrual basis, then you can't change mid-tax season without a reason. And in order to change the way you file taxes, you normally have to file a separate form and give a good reason. It can't just be because I want more money this year.
Right.
Aw, man.
That is a good reason.
That is.
We're not going to jail because we did something shady on our taxes, y'all. Like, if we're going to jail, it's for something good. So let's not mess with our taxes. Do it the right way.
For something good. If we're going to jail, it's going to be for something good. Y'all write it down. I've never heard that one before. We do have a question from Sheila. Shout out, Sheila. It seems that there are a great deal of people with 2020 W-2Ts missing, us included. If DFAS and finance are non-responsive, who should we contact after that? She did a summer 2020 partial ditty.
In that case, the DFAS is subject to any type of fees and penalties if they were a functioning business and didn't issue your W-2. In which case, you go ahead and file your taxes like you normally would, and this is where the receipts come in handy. You file it as if you had a W-2T, and you state on your taxes, because they'll ask you to either put most tax software will have it pre-filed, and all you have to do is load it down or download it. So if it doesn't appear, there's a little box to check saying our W-2 was not issued. You file it as if you had, and that's when the issuing party, in this case DFAS, can get in a little trouble. That's what the deadlines are for. They are enforceable deadlines, and whether it was DFAS or any other company civilian-wise that you work for, if they don't issue those within the deadline, they are subject to fines and penalties for that.
Okay, and is that something you just put out there hey, I know I owe this, but They didn't give it to me, so I'm doing this.
If you go to the IRS website, there's links that you can click saying, hey, I was supposed to get my 1099, W-2, all those forms that you are required to receive as part of your employment. In this case, your husband's employment, your spouse's employment. If you don't get them, then they frown very hard on that.
Yeah, and Sheila, I'm going to reach out to the DTMO, Defense Travel Management Office, to see if there's some reason that folks are missing them, if there was an issue with the system, or if the MyPay website is just being glitchy or whatever it may be. So I'll reach out and see what answer we can get from them as well, and we'll get that answer posted below for you. Hopefully get some resolution to what is going on as well.
Word. And see, that's how we roll here. We're not going to leave you hanging. If we know of a contact that we can reach out to, we're going to do it, y'all. Mm-hmm. So those questions that you might have that are burning in your brain, if I can't answer it, if Megan can't answer it, if Christina can't answer it, then guess what? We're going to take it for action. Word. And before I get to my question, I did want to ask this one from Mari. Shout out. If we're shipping a car from state to state, can it be tax deductible? I don't drive.
This one is also very specific because the military won't ship a car CONUS. However, moving expenses, the IRS will let you, obviously, but not it's one of those things where the IRS is different from Department of Defense. So whether the military won't pay for it and reimburse you for it, you can claim that on your taxes because it will be unreimbursable tax expense or travel expense.
Okay. And can I just ask, generally, before I move on to mine, so basically, nothing is off the table. As long as the military didn't pay for it or didn't reimburse us for it, then we can claim it. In theory, of course, within reason, obviously. People don't go claiming, some craziness. And I could just name 100 things that people probably have tried. But within reason.
Yes, the IRS actually used that reasonable travel expenses. Like if you're moving from Washington State to Florida and decide to trek to Disneyland, those aren't reasonable travel expenses. So as long as you're going from point A to B in a reasonable manner, then all those expenses that come are tax deductible.
Word, that makes sense. But here's the thing. She referenced that because people have tried to do that.
I was going to complain.
And not just one.
What if I got lost and made a wrong turn and just decided to take the long scenic route past Disney on my way to Texas? You'd
really have to work on a justification, I'm assuming. But, I'm pretty sure.
When your map app is a click away, there's really no way to justify an accidental trip to Disneyland.
Again, y'all, we're not going to jail for tax things. As much as we try to wiggle out as much as we can here. But
we're going to jail for good things.
Yes.
I've never. Huh?
If you decide to antique your way across the country, any goods that you acquire en route are not claimable.
Because you've already been weighed and stuff, right?
So
see,
if you decide to get to your next PCS station and somehow are 3,000 pounds heavier than when you started, those goods are not claimable.
This is a little bit of CYA courtesy of Chrissy. Thank you very much.
So expanding that a little bit more. So say we are moving from Virginia to Kansas. I'm going through my home of record state, Ohio, where my dad is holding some of our stuff that we had in storage, and we decided this time we're going to pick it up on our way to Kansas, get a U-Haul to load up everything so I can get my stuff out of his house. He can downsize as needed. That weight, that U-Haul rental, and that additional weight we pick up that's on the route, we can't claim that piece of stuff, right?
That depends. For the military, you're allowed one pickup and one delivery. Personally, if you have moving expenses that just happen to reside at two domiciles, then that gets to be a kind of a little specific area. If you can prove that these were your goods and say you retained two households, you were geobatching for whatever reason, for work or school, then that is different. The military obviously will only cover one pickup, but if you have to do an additional occurrences For the rest of your household goods, then yes, that can be deductible as well. Okay. But that would be in addition to the military, and obviously since they wouldn't be reimbursing you for that second pickup, then that's a perfect scenario of stuff that you can claim as deductible because the military will not reimburse you for it.
Okay, awesome.
That falls under the reasonable.
Yes, the reasonable. Okay, so let's talk kind of partial ditty. Okay, let's talk PPM. Partial PPM, formerly known as ditty. I'm dating myself, right? So many people claim at least a partial, PPM that's taxed when it's when paid to them. So are there any ways to reduce the amount of tax liability for that?
You can't reduce your tax rate because it's a rate, but the liability means any expense that you incurred. So anything that is in addition to what you're reimbursed will reduce that liability. Now, I'm not going saying buy as much as you want because those expenses will reduce your tax liability because it, again, falls into the reasonable. Certain things you can and can't claim. For some reason, you are not allowed to be reimbursed for meals. The military
because
gives you
we
a per
get
diem.
per diem.
Yes. So don't claim meals. Your hotels must be a reasonable accommodation. No 5-star hotels trekking across, no Michelin grade restaurants. And again, it has to be a reasonable length of time or distance rather, and time. If you take 7 weeks to go from, one state to one state, then they're going to be like, well, what did you do en route? You can't claim that many days for that length of travel.
That makes sense. Here's me trying to figure out how can I get us, tax claiming the Great Wolf Lodge for 3 days on our PCS from.
Here's the thing, and just basically the theme is from what I've gathered so far, the theme that I see is sure, you can spin an expense, but I am going to go under the general assumption, A, don't mess with the IRS. Just saying, it's something I never want to do. But also B, when you're thinking about all the work you're going to have to do to justify that, what you call a reasonable expense, what the IRS may not say, err on the side of caution. Just err on the side of caution because the IRS is already having a hard time and you just don't want to put yourself on the blotter, right? Am I right? Is that a thing?
Well, it's not to say that you can't enjoy yourself during a trip. You can absolutely take those side trips. You can have fun. You can take your time. However, remember those things when you save your receipts and make sure that anything that didn't apply specifically to travel from point A to point B isn't something that you're going to try to shoehorn into reduce your tax liability.
Yeah, we're not going to jail for taxes, y'all.
If you have to, keep 2 separate, little receipt folders and think about it as business and pleasure. And if you're looking at an expense and you're like, okay, what did this expense give me? Is it just something that I needed to get from point A to point B? Put it in business. If it's, we wanted to see the greatest ball of yarn in Wyoming on the way to Texas, then that's pleasure.
I love that. So that kind of leads us into our next question here. So what is the biggest piece of advice or the best advice that you can give to a family that's getting ready to prepare for their PCS this summer, or they're getting ready to prepare to do their taxes next week, that they would need to know or should know to be set up for success?
Okay, this one is also make sure that you're aware of where you are and where you're going and be prepared. As I said before, a lot of things are very fact specific and is determined by your family tax scenario and also where you are at and where you're going to. Now, when it comes to your travel reimbursements, you are taxed federally for those, not state and not local. However, you really have to see where you're at locally because there might be additional taxes that are only subject to you because of where you're located. So it won't automatically be taxed state and locally, but you still might be required to depending upon where you're located.
Okay.
So there's no such thing as being too prepared. Ask your mentor spouses, people that have lived it, people that have done it. Ask your local tax professional. When in doubt, ask. Never be too afraid to speak up and say, you know what, I have no idea what I'm doing. Please help.
And Asking those questions and spending the money for a tax professional, folks, is very well worth it. Let me tell you, from when I think back to my earlier years and everything going on, doing my own taxes versus, hiring it out now, it is money well spent. It means it's less stress for me when I can just hand over my folder of W-2s, 1099s, whatever forms for our investments and everything, and let them handle it. And, they know the laws, they know the rules, they know how to do it, versus me trying to sit here on TurboTax and figuring it out. It is money well spent. If you haven't used a tax professional before, I highly recommend it. They know things that we don't know, and they know how to get the most out of whatever your situation is. And so it's just, again, money well spent.
I did want to piggyback a little bit off of your question, MJ, about how can you reduce your tax liability. This isn't a direct reduction. However, most people don't realize that as a military member, you are allowed to file what is called a RETA allowance. It stands for Relocation Income Tax Allowance. And it's a form that you can follow in the year prior to your move. Not everybody knows about it, but you can apply to do it. You won't automatically be approved. But if you are approved, they will give you the entire tax amount that you were taxed back. And it has some caveats and some rules, like say you moved in 2020 and you received your cash in 2021 and filed that taxes, you can't file for a RETA until 2022. So there's some delays. However, you can see all of those taxed amounts back.
Word. Okay, I'm going to take some questions from the audience because we've got some heck of engagement in here. Okay, we'll start with you, Kelly. Kelly Rich. Shout out, Kelly. She said, "Oh wow, dang, I missed out on this in past years," meaning being able to expense certain things and such. And so she wants to know, can we go back for past years that we never claimed PCS expenses?
You are allowed to file amended returns up to 3 to 5 years, depending upon your tax situation. And they allow that so that you could self-correct before they come correct you. So you are allowed to go back and amend tax returns if you have new information, or you realize you did something in error, or received additional tax documents. So you are absolutely allowed to file amended returns for a look-back period is what they call it. And that also applies if tax laws change. It is not automatically grandfathered in. If something happens in your favor, take advantage.
Okay, word. And a quick question from Jennifer. Shout out, Jennifer. Will there be a replay of this so I can write all of this down? Yes, ma'am. Head on over to the PCS Grades Facebook page. Make sure you like us. Make sure you follow us. And we have a cache. We have so many of these videos. And yes, you can have it on the replay. It's Facebook Live, and it is recorded under our video section on the PCS Grades page on Facebook. Yes. And go ahead and peruse the ones from prior. And you know what? Keep watching. Keep watching, because you're going to learn something new every single time that's going to help your next PCS, because I learn something new every time. And apparently, so did Megan. So yes, there is a replay. And then Sheila, shout out again, Sheila had a quick question. RITA applies to service members? I always thought it was for civilian government employees.
Yes, it actually also applies to military members. I can have the link posted to the application and the information. See if I can do that.
Yeah, so just for the record, and don't worry about that right now, Krista, you don't have to.
Okay.
What we will do is, as soon as we're off here, we're going to start plugging in all of the links to all of the references that Chrissy here and that Megan has spoken about, so that you can have it for your reference and figure out how it applies to your military family.
And I'll also link to what is called Publication 3. It's basically a how-to tax for military members. It covers this specific scenario, PCSs, but basically any other scenario that as a military personnel you have questions about regarding your taxes. It's like a comprehensive how to tax while being in the military.
Gotcha. And then we have a question from Monica. Shout out, Monica. Is it true that when you leave the military and you're looking for a job, you're able to deduct some job search expenses?
Some within reason. Again, this falls into what the military won't cover and what the IRS can on your taxes. Like the military won't cover travel trips to scout out for more housing, but the IRS will. You are allowed reasonable travel expenses and costs to find a place to live. Same thing with employment, reasonable costs. It has to be in the immediate future. You can't go, well, I'm going to be moving to Hawaii in 5 years. Let me go, look around. It has to be reasonable again.
Reasonable. I mean, I can almost hear the wheels turning in every one of your heads right now. Like, how could I justify this? How can I go to jail for something good today? I'm never going to let you live that down.
Listen. Hush you. Is reasonable defined somewhere as to what exactly is considered reasonable, or is it open for interpretation on who you are and how you feel that day doing your taxes?
It's not defined. It's actually one of the grayer areas of accounting because they expect you to be able to justify your definition of reasonable. If you just say, oh, because I thought it was reasonable, that's not an answer. You have to be able to show proof and justification. And that's why it's always best to save your receipts, save any paperwork that you think is applicable or relevant, even if it doesn't have a dollar amount, it's not a strict receipt in the sense of the word. Document. If you can prove that you believe it was reasonable, the IRS tends to give you the benefit of the doubt. When it comes to errors, they won't, like if you make a catastrophic error, if you can prove that it was just oopsie versus, malicious intent, that's the difference between a fine and prosecution or a fine.
Fines are better, y'all.
Yeah.
Fines don't send you to jail. We're not going to jail for taxes.
No, but we're trying to save our money here, woman. Stop it.
But a fine is prosecution. But sometimes we fat finger a number or something, adding it in, we don't catch it, and
that's an oops.
Where
that is something that you can amend and fix without too much trouble. If a fat-fingered, tax return results you in a greater liability than you were planning for, then you just pay the difference and move on. Nobody's going to be like, well, you didn't give us $40, than you should have, then we're going to send you to jail. Nobody wants to do that. That causes more paperwork than it resolves. So just make your amendment, fix the correction, and move on. Mm-hmm. However, if you knowingly have an error and you don't fix it, then that can definitely lead to problems down the road.
Yeah.
Word. Kelly, Rich, last question today. Unless any of you guys have any saved rounds while we're answering this one, get it in soon because we're going to be doing that Wheel of Names. Our girl, Stacy Benson on the back end, our community outreach manager at PCS Grades, is going to be collecting these names. So get them in, because we're going to fire it off like it's hot. Okay, so Kelly had a question. All the things that we have thrown out, sorry, let me pull it up. Hi, I'm new here. So all the things that we have to throw out pre-move and then replace on the other end, are those tax deductible? And she cites things like olive oil, pantry items, cleaning supplies, candles, whatever.
No, unfortunately.
None?
None, because they don't fall into household goods because you have to get rid of them. That is when you move into well, why didn't you do the partial ditty and just take them with you? Because you threw them out willingly, they're not going to help you replace them. So unless they were damaged en route, they can be, replaced. But if you willingly, and I know the word willingly, because the military won't move them for you, it's not technically willingly. But they say that since there's an option for you to take them with you and get reimbursed for them versus just tossing away something that's perfectly good just to buy a new something or other, that's not reasonable.
Okay, so holy crap. No, I'm just going to, okay, so I'm hoping to God you're going to, because I'm just sitting here thinking, okay, if I'm moving to Hawaii, and yes, just for the record, Hawaii is considered an OCONUS station. And for the record, your PCS OCONUS is going to look very different tax-wise, which is why you should get with a tax professional who knows their business regarding OCONUS moves. However, I just keep thinking, I'm sorry, I'm not willingly giving it away. If I could throw it all in my carry-on or in suitcases, I'll take it all. I'll buy suitcases to put all my food in. Can I be reimbursed then if I try? if I attempt? I mean, I know it sounds stupid. Nobody's going to do that, but that's the difference between willingly and not willingly.
Well, in this case, the difference of the military versus the IRS applies because the military gives you a per poundage amount. If you were to then purchase a moving company to move the excess for you, those won't be reimbursed, and then you can deduct the amount because it's your house, it's your stuff, it's reasonable moving expenses. I think it's kind of unreasonable to ask you to throw away half your house just because the military won't pay for it to move. Just like it's not reasonable to ask a family CONUS to sell a car because they won't, move one for you. Those are excess expenditures. Just because the military won't reimburse you for them doesn't mean that you can't deduct them on your taxes yourself. You just can't double dip. If the military reimburses you for them, you can't claim them on your taxes.
So, but like some of those household good, some of those cleaning items that I can't move with me because they're liquid, they're flammable, and I ran out of room in my car, I donate them to a local animal shelter or local charity for them to use. I can use that as a charity donation tax write-off type of thing then?
You have to get a form that gives a dollar amount, and the amount usually has to be greater. Again, this depends by area, but yes, if you donate anything to charity, they have to give you a donation letter that gives you a valuation of your gift. If it's cash, that's easy, but if you give goods, services, products, they will give you a letter with a valuation, and then you can take that valuation and use it as a deduction on your taxes.
Okay.
Okay. And then, Monica had a saved round. Before we'll add that to the wheel of names. I've got that. Are our out-of-pocket payments towards housing for repairs or other reasons in any way deductible?
Not
Good
relating
question,
to
by the
PCS.
way.
Not relating to PCS because that's not part of the travel. However, in the military, if it asks you to do anything in addition to your house in preparation to move, then you could argue that. Just like when you move to the new place, you can't claim your first month's rent, you can't claim your security deposit. Those things aren't related to the move. That's related to a totally separate scenario. So if you have to fix a house to move out of it and not get your security deposit taken away, those aren't reasonable. However, if the military mandates, you must get a professional cleaning, then you can argue then that's a reasonable travel expense.
Okay. So that's good. So if that's part of the terms of the lease, you must have somebody come in and full blown clean your house. That is considered a reasonable expense if the military or the privatized housing is asking you to do so. Okay. Here's my question.
In terms of the military housing, if it's a civilian house and the landlord says, clean my carpets, no, that's not related to your PCS as a military member. Okay.
And outside of, a base housing saying you have to hire a cleaner, you have to clean your carpets, and, outside of being able to reimburse that, like if I live off base and I'm asked to do the same thing, the rules do not apply.
Right, because you're involving, DOD, military, privatized housing. Those are kind of convoluted into the same type scenario. Those are reasonable travel costs as a military serviceman or woman PCSing from one location to another.
Tracking.
Again, on the flip side of that, if you are on a waiting list and in TLF a little bit longer than anticipated, and say the 10 allotted days run out and you have to stay in another 15 because you're waiting on base housing, those can be in excess of what they're reimbursing you for claimed on your taxes within a reasonable amount.
Okay. All right. Not my favorite scenario, but we're not going to go there just yet. So we're going to press pause there for a minute. And you guys were so engaging. And again, go ahead and share this with people that you think or know might need this or are currently facing this or will face this here shortly, because this is valuable information that we received from not just like an accountant or a financial professional or a tax accountant, but a military spouse who's lived this life. Okay. That's a huge takeaway. And again, I know that Chrissy may have already said this, but we are speaking in broad general terms, and there are going to be certain tax issues that are specific to you and your military family. And that's when you're going to need to get with a tax professional. And if you're in Chrissy's neck of the woods and you need some assistance, she may be willing to help you. And so perhaps, you could slide us your any professional Facebook page or whatever that we can pass on. And if you have any general questions that are after this, we're keeping in touch. We keep in touch. We're parasites. We keep in touch with our guests. They're not getting rid of us anytime soon. Oh my gosh.
I want to do a little caveat here. Like I said earlier, I am an accountant. I'm not your accountant. Everything that we've talked about, take as advice, as a general guide. And you have specifics relating to you and your scenario and where you're located. So when in doubt, ask a professional always.
Yes, absolutely. And I just need to say for the record that Stacy Benson, first of all, wins the internet today. But just for the record, Stacy, I know you're laughing behind the scenes. I just need you to understand you are not entered to win. So, but you win the internet today. So there's that.
So the hashtag truth, y'all. We are not going to jail for taxes, and Chrissy is making sure she's doing a darn good job making sure that we are staying legal, that we are staying reasonable, and that we are getting what we need to get through our PCS with our taxes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do those wheel of names now. Let's go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. And I was very cognizant, everyone, to close my tab so you did not have to see the crazy of my brain. So let me pull this up for you right quick. Can y'all see the wheel of names?
Yes.
Okay. This one is going to be for the Oh, the Places You Will Go book. Drum roll. Oh, snap. Shout out Jennifer.
Congratulations, Jennifer.
I'd say that this is pretty appropriate, wouldn't you? Okay, and the next up is for the Hope Design Limited Bling. Here we go.
Bum, 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 bum.
Sheila.
Congratulations, Sheila.
Congratulations are always in order. So Sheila, I have your information, and Jennifer, if you wouldn't mind messaging the PCS Grades Facebook page with your email address so we can get in contact with you to know where to send you your Oh, the Places You Will Go. Stop sharing the screen, MJ. Yes, super exciting. Taxes are not exciting, but the people on this talking about taxes are exciting. And
taxes are exciting when we get refunds and don't go to jail.
And don't go to jail. Always good things. All right. Well, thank you so much, Chrissy, for talking to our audience today and talking to us. And, we really appreciate you always and forever. And of course, Megan, our resident PCS reform advocate, we love you, and that's why we're the one team, one fight, man. And just for the record, next week is going to be a pretty interesting one. Unfortunately, Megan can't be with us, but we do have a really awesome thing that we all wish we had. A person representing that is coming on and talking to us about it. Trust me, I'll build up to it, but you need to be there next week. And we are doing it a little earlier next week at 11:30 instead of 1. So prepare for that or catch it on the replay. But until next week, Megan.
This too shall PCS.